I am just filled with gratitude this morning. I'm filled with thankfulness. Um, at the school that I teach at, they used to post SAT words of the week to help students learn the words and get them prepared for the SAT exam. And I remember one week the word was gratitude. And the word was thanks. And under thanks, it had the definition, a show of gratitude. I'm thinking, if someone doesn't know what the word thanks means, there's no way they know what a show of gratitude means. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There's no point to that story. I just always thought that was funny. So apparently I'm the only one who thought it was funny. That's all right. I'm the only one who thinks I'm funny too. So, it works. Hey, we're working through Hebrews 11. So if you have your Bibles, can you open up to Hebrews 11? We're going to make it probably about halfway through today by the grace of God. We'll see. I might get stuck on the first word. That happens. I'm actually going to start in Hebrews 10, verse 39, which is the verse right before it, because I think that's the place where you got to start. So, there's something going on in here this morning, and it's not a heaviness thing at all. It's super light. I just get this sense, and I just feel like I need to say it because I can't shake it. If there's anyone who's been burdened or been carrying something, I feel like God is saying you can let that go. You don't have to carry that. There's such a freedom in this place this morning if you'll grab hold of it and let Him infect you with that freedom. Because once He infects you, it affects you, and you'll be able to walk in a lightness. So I don't know if that's for anyone in here, but I am overwhelmed by how easy it feels in here this morning. It's a supernatural thing. It's a powerful thing. So I just want to let you know it's here. So if you're needing that, if you're needing some easy like Sunday morning, that's here right now. So you can trade your sorrows, you could trade your burdens, you could trade your cares, you could trade all the junk, and He'll give you some easiness this morning. Some of you need some easiness, but it's here. It's totally here. That's more important than anything I'm going to say. So grab hold of that. Don't leave here without it if that's what you're needing. If that speaks to you, I don't want you to raise your hand or anything like that. Can you just come and let me know afterwards? Because I always feel like I'm crazy when I share stuff like that, and it's nice to have some confirmation. All right, so Hebrews 10, verse 39 is where we're starting. Our word of the year is devoted, and we're journeying into what does it mean to be devoted? What does it mean to be devoted to God, devoted to one another? What does this devotion look like? How do we walk it out? And that's part of the reason we're working our way through the book of Hebrews. So here we go, Hebrews 10:39. You should be there by now. But we do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. What I'm going to be talking about today is just this idea of we're part of a family of faith. A much larger family than just the people you see sitting around you here today. A much larger family than every Christian that's alive on the planet today. We belong to this lineage. We belong to this family, all of which are living still in the kingdom of God. We have a family of faith, and we belong to them, and they belong to us. And we have to learn how to live in light of that fact. I think a lot of us, especially right now, are struggling with this idea that you feel like you don't belong anywhere. I don't know if that rings true with any of you. I know I struggle with this a lot. Let me just be honest and vulnerable for a second. I really struggle with this idea of, will I ever fit in anywhere? Like, I always feel like, maybe I'm being a bit too vulnerable, but whatever, I'm just going to talk about it and smile. So does anyone else ever have the feeling like you see a group of people talking, and then you try to walk up to the group and talk, and the whole time you feel like, I shouldn't be here. I'm not part of this. I'm just going to kind of slowly back out of this conversation. Or you don't even walk into the conversation because you know from the beginning, yeah, I don't belong there. I just couldn't. They're too cool for me. That's how I feel a lot. Does anyone else ever feel that way? Okay, good. I was going to say, could you please pray for me? And maybe we need an intercession this morning. But here's the thing, is that we belong to those who we do not belong. First, let's get that straight. We do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. There is a family of faith that you belong to. And I'm going to share with you a word that someone shared with me, and it just pierced my heart. He said to me, if you feel like you don't belong, that means I'm not doing my job right. I want you all to know that you belong here. You belong here. You belong to this family. You belong to the family of God. And you are welcome in this place. And I always want you to feel welcomed in this place. No matter what you've done, no matter what you're doing, you belong. And if you ever feel like you don't, we want to do a better job of showing you that you do. Because you do belong. And what you belong to is so much bigger than just us and so much bigger than just this room. It's so much bigger than just being here. That belonging extends even when you leave from this place and go on and maybe get a job or start a family in a different country. You still belong to us. For those of you who are watching us on YouTube, I just want you to know, those of you who are out all over the place, out in New York and out in other countries, in Italy and in Israel, you belong to. You never stopped being part of this family. I don't know why I feel the need to say this, but let me jump into the message now. We belong to this family of faith, and I want you to get to know this family of faith a little bit. And that's what Hebrews 11 is all about. It's introducing you to your family. Now, you got some crazy family members. I just need to prepare you for that ahead of time. We're going to learn more about those crazy ones next week. We have some less crazy ones this week, but really, if you dig into their story, they're pretty crazy too. We got some crazy uncles and insane tias in this family. It's all there. They're all there. So we're going to get to know them a little bit, hopefully, and I hope that we'll learn something from our relatives. We'll learn something from our family, because there's so much to be learned from them. Hebrews 11. Now, before we get into it, it's a family of faith, and we have to kind of understand what we're talking about. So that's where Barnabas takes us. I believe Barnabas wrote the book of Hebrews, so I won't apologize for that. I'm just going to keep going. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. So let me just pause here for a second. This faith that he's talking about, he says it is the confidence in what we hope for. This word confidence is the word hypostasis, which is, it literally means that which stands under. So an image for you to try to help you understand what exactly is faith that we're talking about. What is faith? Because we talk about having faith all the time and walking in faith, and you have to have faith and increasing our faith. Faith is a foundation. It's that which stands under. It is a foundation upon which we build all of our hope. It's the foundation that the promises rest on. Faith is the confidence, it's the foundation in what we hope for. The promise and the hope are the thing, not the faith. The faith is just the foundation. But it's a necessary part. You have to have it. Faith isn't, bless you. Faith isn't the goal. It isn't the focus. Don't make it the focus. Don't make it the goal. Don't have faith in your faith. You're not trying to get faith. Now, faith is a necessary thing for you to have, and the reason you have to have it is because you need the foundation. It's the first acquisition in order for you to build a life of hope on promises that Christ has made. It's a place for the promise. Because without faith, you can't even begin to build. Or if you do build, you're like the one who built his house on the sand. There was no foundation for the house, and sooner or later, it all came crumbling down. It all came falling down. It may look nice for a while, but it will not last. We want to build our house on the rock. In other words, we want to build our hope. We want to build the promises and our hope in those promises on a foundation of faith, a solid foundation. Because if you don't begin with faith, if you don't start with faith, the hope you have will eventually crumble. It won't be able to sustain itself. You'll stop believing the promises. I really want to make sure you understand this. I feel like I'm splitting some hairs here, but I think it's so incredibly important. By the way, let me also say this morning's message is not going to be very pretty. I'm not going to try to be elegant. I just have some stuff that I feel like I need to say, so I'm just going to let it out there. You can massage it and make it look nicer if you want to afterwards, but I'm just going to give you some raw information because God was downloading a ton of stuff to me. We first have to get this foundation of faith. Once we have that foundation, then we can start building hope. We could start building the house of the promises of God. That's the purpose of the foundation. It holds everything together. To use a different translation, faith is the substance of things hoped for. It's what holds it all together. It's what makes it last. It's what makes it keep going. But the question is, okay, well, if I need to start with this foundation of faith, how do I build this foundation of faith? How do you do that? What does that look like? Well, let's learn from our relatives. Let's learn from those who've gone before us, who are commended for their faith, and let's ask them, what'd you do? How did you build this foundation of faith? Because it's almost easy to hope. It's easy to hope. I see it all the time in my family who doesn't believe. They will throw pennies in a fountain, and they will have so much hope from a penny in a fountain. And they will talk about the hope. They'll wish upon the stars. Hope is cheap. Hope is easy. Having a hope that lasts is difficult. That's why you need faith. Does that make sense? So we need the faith, and then the hope we build is going to be like, oh, this is going to last. I don't have to keep throwing pennies into fountains. I don't need to keep wishing upon the stars. I know it's settled. It's going to be okay. Because it's built on a rock, and it's not going anywhere. My hope has substance to it. It's not just wishful thinking. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. It is the foundation. Are we okay? I'm going to keep going. Verse 2. This is what the ancients were commended for. They were commended, just to be clear, they were commended for having a foundation of faith upon which they built their lives. Everything was built on this foundation of faith. A life of faith. Please hear this. Not a life with faith. It isn't an add-on. It's the foundation. We don't have a hope, make a wish, and then sprinkle a little faith on it. A little faith, trust, and some pixie dust. It is the foundation. It is a life of faith, not a life with faith. It is the foundation, not an add-on. Let me keep going. I think I made my point. By faith, we understand that the universe was formed at God's command so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. All right, here's where we're going to dig in a little bit. First of all, I just want to say I believe that God sang the universe into existence. That's just my own personal thing. And there's a lot of theologians throughout history who agree with me on that. I'm not going to say anything else about it. I just want to throw that out there. It's known as the music of the spheres. So anyway, in my Father's world, it talks about it, the old hymn. So anyway, I believe God sang us into existence. I think he's continuing to sing us into existence. He's never stopped singing. which, why don't we hear it? Because you always hear it. He's always singing you into existence. If he ever stopped singing you into existence, I would say then you would notice how quiet it is. You ever have music on, you didn't realize it until it turned off? Or like a fan, and you didn't realize how loud the fan was, and then you turn the fan off, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's so quiet, right? The only thing is, if God ever stopped singing, it's not like you would be like, oh, it's so quiet. You just wouldn't exist anymore. Everything would disappear. So everything is held together by the power of his word, by the song he's singing. If he ever stopped singing, nothing would be here. There would be absolute nothingness. So anyway, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. Here's where I'm going to make you think a little bit. The foundation of all knowledge, all understanding, and all perception is faith. Faith is where we begin to have any type of knowledge whatsoever. It has to begin with a foundation of faith. Proverbs 9:10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." If you don't have that fear and knowledge of God, of who he is, if you don't have that faith, you can't even begin having wisdom or understanding. Now, this is more than just like a religious Christian perspective. I'm speaking epistemologically. I'm talking about how we know things. The way that we can possibly know anything is because of a foundation of faith. And if we didn't have that foundation of faith, then you couldn't know anything. Science can only accomplish so much. I am not anti-science, let me be clear. We shouldn't be. It's the language with which God created things. Science is incredibly important, but it has a limit. It can only accomplish so much. Philosophy can only answer so many questions, and then it reaches a limit where it can't possibly answer anything more. Now, let me say this, because you might be thinking this is weird. Are you suggesting there's a God of the gaps? No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying like eventually science will figure that out. Now we don't need faith for that part. Eventually science will figure that out. Then we don't need faith for that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying everything reaches a limit where it can only accomplish so much. Even if science could completely explain to us how, it could never even begin to explain why. It has a limit. In mathematics, there's such a thing as something that you can prove that it can't be proven. Right, Robbie? Am I right on that? Okay, just want to make sure. Check Dr. Robbie. You can get to a place where you realize, no. There's a boundary here that we will never be able to surpass with science, with mathematics, with philosophy, with poetry. Poetry and arts can only accomplish so much of describing beauty. And then it's going to hit a wall that it will never be able to get beyond. So what's beyond all of that? That's where faith lives. That is the foundation that it's all built upon. At some point, there will be something we can't see. There will be something we can't understand. Because you can't. And nothing's ever going to change that. That is where faith lives. That's not... Let me say it this way, because I'm going to try and explain it in a way that it's usually attacked. Science can only go so far. At some point, science is not going to be able to give us more answers. And typically, I think the way it's said is, that's where faith begins. No. That is not where faith begins. Faith doesn't begin at the end of our understanding. Faith is the foundation upon which the understanding is built. So when you reach the end of what we can understand, of what science can show us, and poetry can show us, and everything can show us, once we reach the limits of that, that's where we realize all that remains is the faith of the foundation. Okay, it is an important distinction. I feel like I'm the only one who's geeking out about this. That's important that you understand. It's not like I'm suggesting, well, there are these gaps in knowledge. Well, we never know. We'll just have to have faith. No, 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 no. You have to have the faith first, or you can't even begin to have the knowledge. It's because of the faith that we can begin to do science. It's because of faith in an orderly God that is not chaotic, but creates with order and meaning and purpose. That is a necessary preliminary in order to begin doing science. The scientific method requires that. If the universe was chaotic and there was no direction, no meaning, no purpose, you can't even begin to do science. Faith is the foundation of all knowledge. Faith, by the way, is opposed to sight. If you see, you don't need faith. Right? I don't need faith to believe that this book is right here. I can see that it's here. The family of faith, let me be clear. The family of faith doesn't deny what is seen to hold on to faith. We don't look the other way, like, oh, that's dinosaurs. Oh, we're just going to pretend they don't exist. And, I just have faith. You may have science, but I have faith. And, you have Darwin. I just don't want to look, and I'm just going to hold on to a faith. We don't deny what we see. The family of faith does not deny what is seen to hold on to our faith. Rather, we choose faith when we cannot see, because we know it's the foundation. Here's my first statement. I'm going really slow. Here's my first point I want to make about how we build a life of faith. And then I'm going to go much faster. It's not a clean statement, but try to get it. The reality that underlies all that we see is that which is not seen. The unseen spiritual realm is the reality. The seen is the shadow. So all of science, all of philosophy, all of poetry, all of that stuff is really just the shadow of the deeper reality, which is faith. Let me keep going. How we build this life of faith, we have to begin to understand faith underlies everything. It is a foundation on everything else that's built. Verse 4, you guys with me? By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offering. And by faith, Abel still speaks, even though he is dead. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. How long did Cain hate his brother? As long as he was able. That's awesome. I love that joke. I love that joke. It's so stupid. It's fantastic. Okay. Isn't that fantastic? That's so great. Okay, so here's the thing. We're going to jump back in. Genesis 4, verses 3 and 4 kind of describes what's going on here. I don't have time to build the whole thing, but let me just read this portion to you. It says, in the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering. Okay, so I don't think the problem was with what they brought. I think God would have been just as pleased to receive the fruit offering from Cain as he was the meat offering from Abel. Now, I know I'm going against what a lot of people say. That's kind of what I used to believe too. Is like, no, God said he had to give a meat offering, and because Adam and Eve, he killed the... Anyway, I don't think that's the issue. It was the fact that Abel faithfully brought the offering. He brought the offering with a foundation of faith, whereas Cain just gave an offering. Let me read from Genesis again to you, from verses chapter 4, 3, and 4. It says, Cain brought some of the fruits. It seems kind of, well, I'll just grab a couple of these things and I'm going to bring that to God. Where it says Abel brought an offering, fat portions. Fat portions, that's the good stuff. I am the good stuff. I need to embrace the goodness of my fat portions. And he takes it from some of the firstborn of his flock. The firstborn, that's the prized portion. That's the best portion. The key isn't how much work it was. The key isn't in the quantity. The key is in the quality. Now, those of you who are in tune with your love languages or in tune with the love languages of other people, you kind of get how this works. So, for example, my youngest son, Jude, his love language is quality time. He doesn't want to just hang out and watch a movie. Like, we could spend all day with him watching movies and just hanging out in the house, and at the end of the day, he's like, we didn't do anything. It's like, what do you mean? We spent the whole day with you. It wasn't quality time. We didn't play Monopoly. Like, I didn't see your faces. We need some direct one-on-one contact. We need to see each other. We need that quality time. For my bride, I'm going to stand over here. One of her love languages is gifts. Now, you guys, she's the hardest person to buy gifts for in the world. It's so difficult because it doesn't matter how much money you spend. Like, you could spend tons and tons of money. I could buy her gifts and gifts and gifts and gifts. If it's not meaningful, it's almost an insult. It's like, this $50,000 gift, get this away from me. This means nothing to me. You're terrible. And she's not like that at all. She's always very gracious. But like, one of her favorite gifts that I ever got her, it's one of, and I think it is something that was so easy for me. I got it from Amazon. It wasn't expensive at all. It was very expensive, and I sacrificed greatly to get it. It was a set of 2 gray geese, these little statues that we put in our courtyard. Because the gray goose means something very specific to us because of a book and because of shared experiences. And I gave it to her. It was a gift I gave her after I gave her a bad gift that I thought was good because it was expensive, but I was learning, no, it's not about how much it costs, it's the quality of it. She said, this is precious to me. This is precious to me. While I'm picking on my family, Colette, one of hers, welcome to staying, I know, welcome to staying in service. You might want to go back to children's church. For her and for me, one of our love languages is touch. If I ask Letty for a hug, and she knows where I'm going with this, y'all ruined her. She started giving me one-armed hugs. You guys are teaching her the Christian one-arm side hug. Stop it. She will give me a one-arm side hug. I'm like, no. What is that? I want a real hug. That does not count. How is the quality of your gift for God? Abel gave his best. Cain gave some of his fruits. Even if he gave all of his fruits, where's your heart in your gift to God? So here's my second statement. If we're going to build a foundation of faith, if we're going to work on our faith, we've got to learn how to love the Lord your God with all of your heart and give him your best. whatever you give him, make sure it's your best. Otherwise, don't bother. When you give your offering, how much you give matters far less than the heart with which you give it. It's the widow's mite. Keep going. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God. Because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Enoch pleased God. Do you please God? Have you ever thought about that? Do I please God? Enoch was the first person not to have to experience death. In case you're keeping track, Elijah was the second. God was so delighted with him that he allowed him to just stay with him. The best explanation or description of this I've ever heard, and I'll give you the second best after it, was from someone else. They said it's kind of like God and Enoch would walk together. And then one day when they were walking, God was like, we're just closer to my place. Let's just go to my place. And Enoch didn't have to go back home. It's the other picture that I have for it that I really enjoy because it's one of my heroes of the faith, which I'm so embarrassed to admit this. Reapy Cheap. He's from the Narnia books. He's the one that's invited to get in the boat and come to the utter east, where everyone else went back home. God was like, no, we're closer to my place. Just come on over. You don't belong to that place anymore. You belong with me. Enoch really believed that God was there and really believed that God cared. In holy fear, built an ark to save his family. By his faith, he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that is in keeping with faith. So we'll start with just a thing that you've probably heard a million times. When did Noah build the ark? Before it started raining. How confident do you need to be in a word from God that you build an ark? I mean, can you just for a moment stop thinking of it as the play school toys where you have like the plastic boat and you have the little pigs and little fake horses that you put in it? Can you just picture? It's not like he even had power tools or could run to Home Depot and pick up wood. This is a lot of work. How confident do you need to be in the word from God that you build an ark? I mean, the word itself didn't even really seem to make sense. God, you're such a good God. Oh, you're going to flood the earth and kill all living creatures? There was absolutely no evidence to support the claim that it was going to flood. Not a cloud in the sky. For a long time. And yet he kept building. And he kept building. And when he shared it with others, because he literally went and tried to share it with the world. You got to escape. The flood is coming. I'm building an ark. Come and help. Come, you could stay in the ark. You could stay safe. Nobody listened to him. By the way, if you're feeling bad because you've shared the gospel with some people and no one has given their life to Christ, he shared it with everyone and no one believed him. And he's listed in the Hall of Faith. he went and shared with everyone. Everyone thought he was crazy. You are insane, Noah. So many of us have such a hard time when we get a word from God holding on to it. Can you imagine the amount of work it would take? The fact that nothing seemed to support the word that you got, and everyone made fun of you for it. Start building. So many of you in this room have already received a word from God. You know what he's called you to do. Start building. Philippians 2:12, it says, "Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling." We must, like Noah, in holy fear, get to work. So here's my next point. If we're going to build a foundation of faith, serve the Lord your God and fear him. Be more worried about his thoughts than everyone else's. Though the world may call you crazy. Great line from Wimber. Everyone's a fool for something. I'm a fool for Jesus. Verse 8. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. Okay? The key concept here isn't the fact that he went. It's that he had no idea where he was going, and he went. That's different. He didn't have a clue. But he didn't worry about how to get there. I have faith in Google Maps. I do not have faith in Apple Maps. When we're looking up how to get to the place we're going, Corey will bring it up on her iPhone, and I'm like, no. And I'll look it up on my phone because I'm like, I do not trust. Siri does not know what she's talking about. I'm going to run off a cliff if I listen to her. Do you trust God with the directions? Will you follow him without second-guessing it or complaining? Do you trust him that even though you may have no idea where you're going, you trust him to lead you and you will just follow him wherever he says to go? So that's my next point. Building a foundation of faith, we have to trust the Lord our God and follow him. Trust that he knows better than we do. Verse 9, by faith he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. You guys, this world is not our home. And some of y'all are living like this is all there is. Storing up riches where moth and rust will surely destroy it. Nothing in this world lasts. But even if it did, you won't. Abraham, listen to this. Abraham followed God to the promised land. The land that God promised to give to him. He made his home, and I wish I had a little bit more time to break this down, but where it talks about he made his home, it's in reference to a permanent dwelling. If you make your home somewhere. Not make yourself at home, that means you relax as though you would at your home. But if you make your home, it's a reference to this is your permanent dwelling, this is where you're going to stay. He made his home in the land. but used temporary tents to live in. While Abraham was alive, this land that God promised him, he never owned any of it except for a small portion where he was able to bury his wife. This land that God promised him, this is the promised land. I will give it to you and to your ancestors. When he died, all he owned was a tiny little plot where he could bury his wife. Here's what I want to say about this. While this world is not our home, we can make it our home by praying, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." Here's my next point. I'm trying to rush through because I know we're out of time. My next point to how to build a foundation of faith, we must find a way to make our home in the world, but live in temporary tents. We have to make our home in this world. This is where we will dwell. We're going to set up shop. We're going to dig some roots. But we're going to live in temporary tents because we know this is not our home. Verse 10, "For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God." You ever hear the saying, like, he's so spiritually minded that he's no earthly good? I don't know if you've ever heard that. The spiritually minded are those who are looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. And I promise you, they are the only ones who ever do any earthly good. We need to think a whole lot more about heaven. None of us are thinking about heaven nearly enough. And that's not going to take you out of this world where you're not paying attention to what's. You will totally pay greater attention to all that's around you if you really had a glimpse of the kingdom. And you were really living in light of the kingdom. My next point that I want to make for building a foundation of faith is to live for eternity, not for today. Focus on heaven. Verse 11, "And by faith even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand in the seashore." We have to be willing to believe the unbelievable. We have to be open to miracles in our lives. We have to stop putting limits on God and saying, well, that's just not natural. He's supernatural. He's the one who created the laws of nature. He is not bound to them. So my next point that I want to make, if you want to really build a foundation of faith, can you start living your life expecting a miracle? I'll tell you what, guys, we would see a whole lot of miracles in this place if every day when you walked through those doors, you expected a miracle. I can't change that. Only you can. We need to expect a miracle. I swear I'm almost done. Verse 13, all these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. Hey, really quick, we're limited by time. God is not. It's not that they never received their promises. It's that while they were alive, they didn't. They understood that some of the promises that God makes to us are not for this age, but for the age to come. And that's okay. It's still there. He's not going to take that promise away. It's built on faith. You know you can trust it. He's not limited by time like we are. Verse 14, people who say such things show that they're looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. We're almost done. You have to, at some point, let go of this world. At some point, you have to leave that country. You have to leave this world. I don't mean like someday when you die, you have to leave this world. No. I mean like now. This is not your home. We'll make a home here, but this is not your home. And you have to stop living as though it is. This world is no longer your home. Now, that doesn't mean you don't take care of it. You know what's something that I do? When I go to people's houses, I pull weeds when I see them in their yards. Now, I'm not getting crazy, so don't invite me over to pull weeds. But if I'm standing in their backyard and I see a weed, I'll bend down, I'll pull out the weed. It's not my home, but I can make it better. I can serve it. I can take care of it. So I pull the weed. But I don't lay around in my underwear in the house. It's not my home. It doesn't mean I don't take care of it. Do you get that? This world is not your home. Some of y'all sitting around in your BVDs in this home, in this world. This is not your home. Put your clothes back on. Pull some weeds. Leave every place better than it was when you came. Every place should be better because of your presence being there as a representative of the kingdom of God. But it's not your home. And the next verse sums it up and we're done. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Something really bitey about that statement. He's not ashamed to be called their God. I don't want him to be ashamed to be called my God. They were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. And he has prepared that place for us.